Hello friends and welcome to Picture Astrology. In this video we will learn about Saturn in the 6th house of Sagittarius for a Cancer Ascendant horoscope. So we have a horoscope where Cancer, which is the 4th sign, is rising and Saturn is placed in the 6th house. Now this placement of Saturn affects multiple areas of life, especially the marriage or the 7th house related affairs, because Saturn rules the 7th house in case of Cancer Ascendant. So we'll look into the details about how this Saturn affects your marriage life and many more areas of life in next few minutes. So first of all, let's see how does the planet Saturn behaves for a Cancer Ascendant horoscope. So when the ascendant is Cancer, the lord of the ascendant becomes the luminary planet Moon, because Cancer is ruled by Moon. And we know that ascendant lord is one of the most important planet in the horoscope. It basically shows who you are, who is the real person, whose horoscope we are analyzing. And you can check my video about how to find who am I from horoscope for more details. But the thing is that Moon truly represents the physical self of this horoscope, and Saturn is one of the natural enemies of Moon. So the relationship between Moon and Saturn is as such that Moon never considers anybody its enemy, but Saturn considers Moon as an enemy, and Moon or Saturn is generally considered adverse to any luminary planet, which is Moon or Sun. And at the same time, Saturn is the lord of Capricorn, which is the 10th sign, and Aquarius. And these two falls into 6th, or rather 7th and 8th house of Cancer Ascendant. So we know that 8th house is again one of the negative houses. So in general, the lordship of 8th house and the natural enmity between Moon and Sun, Moon and Saturn, makes Saturn a malefic planet for Cancer Ascendant. So we have to keep this thing always in mind while analyzing the effects of Saturn. Now let's also see how many areas or how many houses this Saturn is going to impact. See, Saturn is sitting in the 6th house. So 6th house, Saturn is lord of Capricorn and Aquarius, which are respectively in 7th and the 8th house. So all three houses have a direct influence of Saturn. Saturn has some special aspects. So first aspect of Saturn is the 3rd house aspect, which falls into the 8th house. So anyways, 8th house will be greatly influenced. Saturn aspects 7th from its own placement, so which goes to the 12th house. So 12th house of your spirituality, of your expenses, that will be influenced by this Saturn. And Saturn also has 10th house aspect, meaning it aspects the 10th house from itself, which will happen to be the 3rd house in this case. So things like your relationship with your siblings, how quickly you take decisions or how courageous you are, how or what kind of short journeys you will take in your life, etc. They all will be affected because of the aspect on the 3rd house. So you see, there are so many areas of life which this one placement Saturn is going to impact, and we are going to talk about them one by one in next few minutes. So for the quick reference, I have listed all these areas here, and let's start discussing about, say, 6th house where Saturn is placed. So the first thing which comes into mind with the 6th house is that it's one more negative house. It generally signifies your debts or things you owe to others, or the kind of diseases your body may contact, or the enemies or obstacles in your life you are going to face. Now we saw that Saturn is a malefic planet for Cancer Ascendant. Especially it is the lord of 8th house, which kind of is known to destruct many things. So when such a destructive planet is placed in the 6th house, it destructs your debts, it destructs or defeats your enemies, and it also destroys your bodily ailments. So this placement is actually a very well position, because a malefic Saturn would generally give you respite from all these three. So it is also called as Vipriti Raj Yoga, or basically, two negatives make for a positive. So you have a negative planet placed in a negative house, and that gives you some really positive effects. So at least in terms of getting rid of your debts, or get physical strength of the body and defeating your enemies, this is a good placement. It is also called as Shatru Hanta Yoga in Sanskrit, which means someone who defeats the enemies easily, or who remains invincible rather, from all adversaries. And generally though, the Cancer Ascendant, being ruled by Moon, is considered a very soft ascendant, but still this Saturn here can make these people really ruthless against anyone who can be perceived as their own enemy. But there are a couple of negative sides of this placement of Saturn here too. And the first one is 6th house, among other things, also shows law enforcement. It is the rule of law. It shows police. It shows, judiciary or legal affairs. And this Saturn, if afflicted, if there is any even small affliction, because this Saturn has an direct aspect on the 12th house, what it can do is it can engage you into some kind of ordeal with the local law enforcement or police. It could even mean some kind of issue with the courts. You might get into some issues or troubles or settlement for which happens through court, and generally you are liable to win from the courts, because the negative Saturn here helps you defeat your enemies, but it can waste a lot of your time. And remember, the defeat of your enemies, your debts and disease, that generally happens 100% when this Saturn is not afflicted, when this Saturn is alone. If there are other influences, then these kind of law related entanglements can bother you little bit too, can take up a lot of your time, can cause you some worry, etc. So it is very advisable, when you have this placement, to abide by law, and even if you get into some kind of trouble, try to do an out of court settlement. Don't drag the matter all the way up to court, because the legal troubles could go on for a longer time. Now 6th house also, among other things, is the house of hard work. It shows the areas which requires you to work hard to get any benefit. And Saturn here generally makes for a person who is capable of working hard. Now whether he really, basically means that physically he is capable of doing hard work. His body will not be weak. Now it depends on the position of Moon, which is the Lord of Ascendant, whether he used that physical personality or put that into good use or not. But we can definitely say that from the physical perspective and also from the longevity, this Saturn is Lord of the 8th house and has a direct aspect on the 8th house. So you can easily say that the life would be long enough. Now let's quickly move on to the marriage aspect of this Saturn and see how it affects your married and partnerships. So Saturn is the lord of 7th house because it owns the sign of Capricorn, which shows your marriage as well as partnership, which could be business partnership as well. So we see that Saturn, though being the lord of 7th house, is placed in 6th. Now 6th is generally considered a negative house, and at the same time lord of a particular house going to a 12th position, once one house before that house, is again considered a little bit difficult position. But Saturn is in a friendly sign. Sagittarius, or the sign ruled by Jupiter, is, even though fiery environment, but Saturn and Jupiter are generally on the friendly terms with each other. So what it shows for the marriage at least is that there would be delay in finding the right partner. Generally people like this, they commit to a marriage only after a lot of thinking. See, because Saturn has a direct aspect on the 3rd house. 3rd house shows your courage, which also means your decision making ability. These people generally are not quick to commit. They are not quick to take even any decision. They like to think, sit over things, think about all possible aspects of it, and then only take a decision. So that is the general trait, and that trait also generally causes delay in getting the marriage. And another aspect is that Saturn's aspect on the 12th house gives them somewhat of an ascetic tendency. These are people who could be happy with less. They would be just happy with small things in life. They, unless Moon's position is otherwise, because Moon shows your ascendant. So generally there's this tendency to just remain happy in whatever you get. So that tendency makes them not someone who runs after physical things. They are not the ones who would want this thing or that thing, or always looking to buy new things, or they are not the ones going after the luxury items, or always wanting a vacation. No, they are kind of self-satisfied personality, somewhat ascetic. So that's also a very typical characteristics of Sun in Sagittarius in 6th house, and that generally happens because of the aspect on the 12th. So friends, this was one of my quick analysis of Saturn in Sagittarius for a Cancer Ascendant horoscope. I hope you liked this. Please do like and subscribe to my channel to continue to get more updates. I know there are many other aspects of life which I have listed here but not talked about in this video, but I would talk about this remaining aspect in the second part of the video. Thank you for watching so far. I hope you really enjoyed and learned something. Thank you again, and see you again soon. Bye bye.